Dana White is one of those rare breeds that creates noise and has been successful, but the predominant beneficiary of that success has been Dana White.
I think he provides a service to the fan base better than any other fight promoter.
When we talk about boxing being broken, I heard Dana White talking about boxing being broken. It's broken in America, not here.
With the UFC model, I agree with it. It's great for the fans. It's not great for the fighters.
It's a genius move, really, because Makhmudov is a big name. It's a big step up. But it's a winnable fight, which sets up then a big fight with possibly Deontay Wilder.
He's got the right team around him in Jamie and Nigel. They will look after him. They will make sure he doesn't get into any bother. He doesn't get himself into any sticky situations. But I still worry for him.
daveallen, in this vein of thinking right now, I think has the heart to potentially take it away from him.
Got the rankings here. It's some top 10.
No, it's unbelievable. It's the most exciting division for me.
To be honest with you, no disrespect to Adeleye whatsoever, I've never really wanted to see him in any fights after a few of the performances that he's had.
Welcome to episode 141 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan and the intrepid explorer Spencer Oliver. Joining us today is Paul Smith, birthday boy, and the brilliant broadcaster and presenter, Adam Catterall. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, mate.
On my little travels around the globe, not as varied as Spencer's, I was in Scotland last week and I was in the sauna and I bumped into Sandor Martin.
All right.
You know him?
Yeah.
Very good. Do you know who he is, Spencer?
No, I wondered where you was going with the story when you said I was in the sauna, but anyway.
I was in the sauna. I was in the sauna. Do you know who Sandor Martin is?
No, I don't, mate. I'm still blown away by the sauna bit. Carry on. You're speaking to Adam, no?
Super lightweight. Who fought Teofimo Lopez, dropped him twice.
Yeah.
He was in the corner of the fighter that was always going to be, was working in the camp. This was the fighter that was going to fight Nathaniel Collins. So he was a very, really nice kid. Really good. Just wanted to say.
Is that it? Is that it?
I'm just. It was talk sauna. That's what it was.
Absolutely. Simon, you've dropped something, mate. You've dropped something over there.
I'm just saying that I was talking about boxing wherever I go, even up in Scotland. Anyway, listen.
Nice.
Let's talk about Dana White and this new TV deal. Big fan. You're a big fan of his. Interesting times. Zuffa Boxing, which is the original name of what he called his first acquisition of UFC, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Paramount Plus, which is a deal that's been done with UFC. What's going on here with Dana? What does this TV deal look like and what's going on here?
I think it's a very strong move for the American boxing market. I don't think anybody here in the UK has to be too concerned right now, because this is obviously something that they're going to be concentrating over stateside. I think it's quite evident that the audience in America is very disengaged with the sport, which is alarming. With the rise of the UFC, I think that's played a massive role of it, but also I think poor matchmaking for a period of years over in the States has played a role in that as well. And this, for the American audience, I think is a strong move, because if you look at Top Rank, for example, they don't have a TV deal at the moment. You've got PBC that are flirting around with Amazon. It's behind paywalls. It's very difficult to get your hands on. Golden Boy are on DAZN. Everybody knows how to access that, but it's a very niche channel when you're looking at other sports. And Paramount/CBS.
Yep.
They are the NFL, they are many other sports, of which he's going to capture the casual audience.
Betting off the fact he's got a UFC deal there anyway.
100%. 100%. And as I was speaking to Spence on Saturday night when we were doing the Fight Night show, I think that is going to be the play. I think he's going to use a lot of what he's doing with the UFC on Paramount and CBS, which starts in January of next year. It's not going to be on pay-per-view anymore, the UFC, which I think is a really strong marketing point for him, and I think at some point throughout the course of a week, that is when you will see him air his boxing proposition.
Well, we'll dig a little bit deeper into Dana and Zuffa Boxing in a second, but let's listen to Eddie Hearn and what he had to say about it.
Obviously, what do you expect me to do? Roll over like a puppy and let him tickle my belly? No, we're going to war, because you're coming into my market, you're coming into my business, where I believe I'm number one, and you're telling me you're going to be number one. The Zuffa belt, for me, is a belt that no boxer has any interest in at all. The legacy and history comes through the organisations, the fights that they have staged, and the champions that have walked before them. Every young fighter looks at a Floyd Mayweather with a WBC belt, or a Hagler, or a Leonard, or an AJ, or a Fury, or a Lennox Lewis. They want to win the belts. I have absolutely no fear, no problem that it's going to affect our business in the slightest. In fact, what it's going to do is allow me to step up my game. I don't want to change the canvas to a different colour. We're blue. We're blue, red and white, right? We are boxing. I'm not going to change the way that the ring is. Maybe cut that corner off or put a rope higher. No, I don't want that. And I know people criticise me about he'd sell his own grandmother. I would not sell the sport out like that. You never, do you honestly think, oh, Ed, Eddie Hearn's changed the ring. It's round now. Oh my God! And there's one rope, and you know, and it's purple. The canvas.
I have to pause for a second about some of that nonsense, because we know he would sell his grandma. He'd sell Anthony Joshua to fight Jake Paul. So let's not get into the credibility of what people will and won't do. And you know, obviously people are observing on his TV show about the organised chaos that Matchroom does. But listen, different discussion, successful business, and everyone admires them for the things that they do. You've been catching some shrapnel because you're a fan of Dana White's and you're a fan of Evolution and you're a fan of potentially what he may well be doing. Why are you catching flack for that?
I don't know. Maybe I have a different attitude to where boxing's currently at. Maybe I think here in the UK we live in a bubble, don't we? In this echo chamber of where everything is good. We're doing really well right now. I think the promoters like Eddie and Frank are doing really, really well. The top end are doing well. The fight fans are getting the fights that we all want to see. But I think down at the bottom end there can be a little bit more work done in that ecosystem. And spending a lot of time over in America, I can see that the audience is disengaged. Traditionally, as a kid growing up, the biggest pay-per-view market for me was always America. The big stars were always in America. Maybe that is just me talking with a little bit of nostalgia.
When you look at Dana White, I mean, we're seeing somebody that's been fantastically innovative and forward-thinking.
Yeah.
Primarily for his own benefit. We're seeing class actions being brought by UFC fighters, left, right and centre, for compensation against the distribution of monies. So why are you so pro? I mean, he's trying to repeal and adjust the Muhammad Ali Act, which is about the way that fighters are being treated and have to be treated, which I would imagine is only for his own benefit. Now, I'm great one for innovation. I think if you don't move forward, you go backwards in the end. But Dana White is one of those rare breeds that creates noise and has been successful, but the predominant beneficiary of that success has been Dana White and his ownership of UFC. So why are you so pro?
I think he provides a service to the fan base better than any other fight promoter on the planet. And I have concerns myself over the Muhammad Ali Act reform. Of course, I think that is alarming for any fighter that is currently connected, especially American fighters. Obviously, it's an American federal law, isn't it? But I think for him to be able to do what he needs to do to be able to appeal and re-engage the American audience, certain things do need to change because people, for example, like he said that he's not going to work with any of the sanctioning body belts, right? And I can understand that because you look right now, and I know that Eddie's just been speaking there about the heritage of belts, and I get all that argument. But right now, if you're a casual fan looking at this sport, there are 92 World Championship belts in operation right now. There's 18 weight divisions if you include the bridgerweight scenario. 51 people are walking around currently classing themselves as world champion, 22 interim champions. That's too much. That is misleading the audience as to what being a world champion really is. The model of the UFC works because
we make a fight
one single, one song.
But we make a fight play about undisputeds. We make a fight play out being undisputeds. Do you think fighters will go for this, Spence?
Personally, no. I think that I think it's too big a job. I think that, you know, the heritage of the four belts, you know, they are what the fighters fight for. They are what they want, and we are getting the best fighting, the best now with the, you know, with the investment of Turkey, Sheikh and Riyadh season. With the, you know, the fans are getting what they want. When we talk about boxing being broken, I heard Dana White talking about boxing being broken. It's broken in America, not here. We're getting the fights that we want. We're getting the talent coming through. Look at the amateur gyms. Look what's coming through. In America, they're disengaged. They're not getting that. Like, what did they have? One bronze medalist in the last Olympics? It was where they used to dominate
but isn't
at
that,
9
but isn't
medals
that
at a time.
the draw of other sports that's creating that situation, with NFL drawing what would typically be heavyweight fighters that would have found themselves in boxing?
I think it's the other way around. I think the audience disengagement in boxing has actually led to these fantastic athletes then go towards NFL, towards the NBA, towards these other things. And that's why they're not boxing. If you go back to the 80s, I mean, top 10, top 15 heavyweights in the world, majority of them were American.
Of course they were.
But now, they're not there anymore because they're completely disengaged with the sport.
Because they're playing NFL and basketball or
that's
baseball.
what I mean. They've gone elsewhere.
But I don't think that's because of the lack of boxing. I think it's because it's the easy route. And there's easier ways of making money than being punched in the face. And it's not for everyone. That's why there's only so many boxers in the world. There's so many fighters in the world. With the UFC model, I agree with it. It's great for the fans. It's not great for the fighters.
I agree.
It never has been great for the fighters. Even if...
Well, it's not... When you say it's not great for the fighters, what do you mean?
I mean,
the distribution of monies.
The distribution of monies, it's around 15-20% or something, as if from what I read.
Yeah,
so that's not
currently
good,
at 18%, yeah.
The highest gross and highest paid
80-20
MMA fighters made the money in boxing. Conor McGregor, Francis Ngannou, etc. And now, if you're a UFC champion, you're fighting the best fighter every single time. So there's no longevity. So the fighters are being used up quick and moved on, and the fans are great because they're getting the next fighter. But the fighters are not really getting the longevity that they should get, the maximum potential earnings that they should be making. And also with regards to Zuffa, what Eddie mentioned there, it speaks a lot of sense. Like there's not a single. The only way I'm going to fight for that belt is if the money is well more than what I'm getting, and the money's going to be less.
But what he's talking about there, I agree with what Spencer and what you're saying. There is no world champion, there is no currently ranked fighter on the planet right now that is going to be attracted to what Dana White is doing. He's going to be trying to attract fighters that are a little bit disengaged, that aren't getting love from promoters. He's going to be starting at the very bottom end of the ecosystem. The Zuffa belt doesn't mean anything. Let's be dead straight about it. Nobody's going to be walking around saying that the Zuffa champion's world champion.
You're talking about changing the sport, and I think the history of the sport, and with the four belts, the four belt era, look how long it took to get the WBO just to be accepted when they brought in a new belt. What I'm saying is to tear all that up, start again, and bring in the Zuffa belt and one belt and this boxing league, etc., etc. I think it's going to be more confusing for fans, and they will disengage even more. I think you're taking away the whole history of the sport.
But isn't the bigger question? I mean, anything I think, and I'm sure you guys agree, anything that highlights boxing and keeps people talking about it and it opens up new audiences is a good thing. I think the real question is not whether Dana White is doing it out of the goodness of his heart, not whether Dana White is doing it from the principle of the fact that we know the UFC model has worked from a certain perspective, but the fighters themselves have got the rump end of the deal, hence the reasons why they've been paying out hundreds of millions of dollars in compensation, and hence the reasons why there's some jeopardy in the fact that TKO and boxers and UFC fighters mixing might be a bad mix for the overall picture of Turki Adeleye being in business with Dana, because all of a sudden, the UFC fighters are going to go, hang on second, these fighters are getting 80% of the purse, we were getting 20%. The bigger question is, do we think this could be successful? Put aside our moral arguments about the structure and whether we think the traditional belts, and by the way, the WBC have been scandalous over the last 5-6 years. So when we talk about the legacy belts that we value so highly, look at what they've been up to and look at the way that they operate. They allow champions to be in recess. They allow fighters to be given excuses for failing drugs tests. They allow mandatories not to be made. There's a whole raft of we confer legacy belts like the WBC, but do we think that there's a potential that this is going to be a successful outcome given it's Dana White, or are we just saying forget it on all levels? We don't think it's going to work, and we don't think it's a good idea anyway.
My concern is we were talking about fighters disengaging, fans disengaging from the sport because of what's going on, etc., etc. And if we start try and sort of tear what we've already got up and start this new thing with a Zuffa belt and everything else, I think that the fighters would disengage even more because the interest won't be there that it was. So you got to go through the layers here and go back to the grassroots and the amateur boxing, etc. And their dream is to become Olympic champion and become world champion, whether one of those four belts. If you're tearing all that up, do we still get the same engagement?
Not tearing it up.
Yeah,
no, just adding to it.
Adding.
People
to
are going to have a choice, aren't they?
Yeah, no. But will people want to do that?
Yeah. That's their choice.
We've had this, in my opinion, and we've just been mentioning the four belt here and being a world champion. What if Matchroom decide to do what Dana White's doing, right? If you're with Matchroom, you only fight on Matchroom, you only go in this show, and that's it. And then Warren does it with Queensbreed, and everyone else does it with their own. And then we're back to where we started before Turki Adeleye got involved. So you can't have literally a closed shop and only that belt. And if I always used to say this about the UFC, if any promoter decides to do what he's doing, there's only one network where you're going to make money. There's only one network where you're going to be shown on television, and there's only one belt that you're fighting for. Then you could make a killing in boxing. You could have boxing great again, the best fighting the best, but it doesn't last, that model, unfortunately. I think Dana White's unbelievable at what he's done. I think he's a fantastic businessman. I think he's done phenomenal for the sport, and as a person, I think he's absolutely flying in the States. I just can't see this working in boxing because of the format.
I think you need to look at it as a feeder. I don't think it's going to be competing with Eddie or Frank or any of these guys.
Absolutely.
I think it's going to be a brand new part of the ecosystem, which is going to feed the bottom end. It's going to be treat it like a contender series where people come, make a bit of a name for themselves.
It'll be interesting to see what he does with those fighters, because
I think
he's not a fool, will he?
No.
He's
I think the partnership.
he's not going to allow them to be built up in his little area and then suddenly say, "Thank you very much. I put all the seed capital in you."
No,
they're going to off and fight when they want to fight.
This is the interesting thing of how that then does progress. Because he has partnered with Turki Adeleye. Turki Adeleye has his own shows away from the guys that he's working with, doing these Ring magazine things. For example, when we were out recently for the Canelo Crawford fight, they had a series of events throughout the course of the week. Young fighter Mikey Talon, he had a fight on a Wednesday, did incredibly well.
You do that all the time.
And then straight away, Turki Al-Sheikh's in the ring going, you're going to be on the Ben Eubank undercard. And he's on the Ben Eubank undercard. So I think that is going to be this that they are creating.
Can I ask you, Adam, then as well, because where alarm bells ring for me when you mention about coming in at the bottom.
Yeah.
I know a few UFC lads who are training in local gyms in Liverpool.
Yeah.
The money's terrible at the bottom in the UFC. The contracts are not that good. And
what's it compared to like boxing?
Compared to boxing at the lower levels. So a young boxer could be going in and fighting for a British title and getting 25 grand, and in the UFC they're getting $10,000 plus a 10,000 bonus win, or 15,000 and a 15 bonus win. I don't know what the exact numbers are, so you couldn't quote me on it. But
yeah, it's 20 and 20.
You're watching, so you're watching two really, really good fighters knocking 7 bells out of each other in the UFC, and they're getting $20,000 each. And in the boxing, that type of level, the money's well better. So young boxers at that level.
What at the entry level of boxing?
The entry level of boxing, the money.
They're getting paid 20 grand to fight.
There's a lot better money in boxing at the lower level. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So
at the level that those fighters are on live television slots on the UFC, to have a British title fight, you're getting 20 grand for that, 25 grand for that probably. You know, I think at the level that we're seeing them fights at, the money on the contracts has always been renowned to be very low for the fighters, and I think that's what would have to change for boxers to accept in
Well, we'll see. I mean, just before we close this section off, there's a little aside to see that I was interested to see Ben Shalom doing a new deal with Riyadh season. It's an extension really of the 24 deal, isn't it? But I think actually it's an interesting one because I think it signals and signposts the fact that DAZN is not necessarily the home for boxing. It's not all about DAZN and being behind that paywall. It's about the fact that I think Turkey wants to be a little bit of a disruptor, keep all the promoters in play, make sure that all the promoters have an opportunity to compete, at the same time as allowing terrestrial broadcast. I don't think it's a deal with the BBC. I think it's a deal direct with Boxer.
Yeah.
So it's about Boxer having a little bit more support and structure to be able to acquire better fighters and perhaps put better fighters on the BBC. I don't think it's anything to do with Riyadh season and the BBC.
No,
but it gives Ben an opportunity.
Absolutely, it's Riyadh season and Boxer, and I think that it's interesting because it opens it right up. We got the BBC, which is a great terrestrial broadcaster, and it opens things up. It's going to be very interesting. By the way, I also saw Turki Al-Sheikh has just done a deal with Matchroom Sport as well to cover, just snooker, as well as other sports as well.
You look at the Qataris. I think have bought a significant proportion of Matchroom for the darts. And I mean, Matchroom is a phenomenal business. Irrespective of people parodying some of the stuff they saw on that documentary, it's a phenomenal business. But it's interesting because people that were potentially rejoicing in the perceived demise of Boxer. Frank was having a little swipe about, what couldn't he have put a fight on a different nights because he's only got 4. That sort of dig may well be not well founded. We'll see. I think the more promoters that are in play, the more competition there is, the better it will be for the fight business.
I think it's always more healthy.
Sorry, Spencer. Back to what we were saying. If Turki Al-Sheikh is sitting above it all, he can work with every single one of them and make fights a lot easier. If there's one that's not really involved in the fold, then it's more difficult to make any fight you want.
We'll see how the commerciality works out, because I get the impression they're retracting a little bit financially, and that the reality of the gold rush, there's gold in them hills, and everyone can get a huge amount of Saudi added tax in terms of the money that the Saudis will have to pay for it, is beginning to diminish. And I think promoters are beginning to pull it back in a little bit, and fighters are going to have to reacquaint themselves with the reality of there's a scale, and it isn't all about Saudi money.
Question, what do you think the long-term goal is for Riyadh season and the Saudis? Like where you go, where I say, look, they've shown an interest in Netflix, they've shown now an interest in BBC, obviously own part of DAZN, but do you think it's just to see where eventually it lands?
They're achieving their aim. They want people to be talking about sport in Saudi and not other issues around Saudi.
And also visiting Saudi, there was 20 million visitors last year.
Well, you've got a population that's under 30. They want sport. They want Western entertainment. And so that's what they're bringing.
Just the final one on the Zuffa boxing thing. I think it's going to look very different, their proposition. I think they're going to have their fights will be midweek.
I'm interested to see what it looks
like.
So
if you look, for example, last week, big UFC event. Next week, it's not going to be on next year, it's not going to be on pay-per-view with it being on Paramount, the UFC. So they'll go on a Saturday night. Friday night, they've got this slap fighting proposition. Thursday night, they have the jiu-jitsu competitions, which is on. Tuesday night, he already has Dana White Contender Series. I think it'll sit there on the Wednesday.
Do you think it works? Do you think it works, by the way?
What?
The Zuffa boxing and what they're trying to achieve. Do you think it's achievable? I mean, it's a big ask. It's a big ask.
It's a very, very big ask to attract the biggest names of the sport to that model. As it stands right now, I think that is a very, very difficult thing to do. But one thing that he does have on his favour is, one, who he is and who his team are, TKO, WWE, all that. And as it stands right now, even though he has not done a show yet, he's got the biggest TV deal in America. The other guys don't have the TV deal. He's got the TV deal, and he's got the power of the UFC to be able to cross-market it back.
Do you think also then that will bring American boxing back? Because that we were talking about this Saturday night.
I think it re-engages the audience.
All the big stars have gone into, they need the TV stations, they need the promoters, and they need to freshen things up to go back into the grassroots, go into the amateurs, to get people engaged again.
I think, Spence, as we've always said, it doesn't matter the level of the fighters. If they're evenly matched, it's a good fight. I think they will put good fights on. They're renowned for it in the UFC. In the defence, the UFC fights, the competitive, the well-matched all the time.
We will see. Spence, Dave Allen's back in the ring this week. Interesting fight. Makhmudov, obviously once upon a time, struck the fear of God into everyone, not just by the way he looked, but what he did in the ring. Obviously, Catterall dispelled some of that myth.
Yeah.
But it is still a risky proposition for Dave. We are obviously all very pleased to see David in very good form and moving forward and with ambition and obviously, having beat Johnny Fisher. But this is a different fight now, isn't it? This is a different challenge for him.
Absolutely. Listen, risk versus reward, you have to go for it. And I think that Dave now, as we've seen in the condition that he's in this week, he's teamed up with, Nigel Travis and Jamie Moore, who have done an incredible job with him, and he's fell back in love with the sport. And I think that the victory over Johnny Fisher has opened up a lot of doors for him. He gets this one against Makhmudov now, who was one of the most feared fighters in the world, but has lost a couple of times since then. And it's a winnable fight. It's a fight, actually, I think he wins. I think that he's smart enough early on to sort of weather any heavy storms that come towards him. He's got that boxing IQ. He's a good body puncher. Catterall was the one that exposed Makhmudov to the body in the first defeat that he received. And I just think that you look at it all and you go, I think it's a genius move, really, because Makhmudov is a big name. It's a big step up. But it's a winnable fight, which sets up then a big fight with possibly Deontay Wilder. So, how careers can turn around. And I'm pleased for Dave Allen because he's a great guy, but also he's better than people have seen. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we had Johnny Nelson on the show last week. Let's have a listen to what Johnny said about this fight.
I think I looked at Dave probably 3 years ago and thought, you should jack in. You're getting hit too often. It's great talking about it when you're doing a game. It's 5-10 years down the line, you think you should have walked out 3 or 4 fights before you did. If it's about the money, I get it. But he wants to... And he lives modestly with his family. But I think
it's about the money, John, isn't it? It's about the money.
But you know what? Go down the British title route. Get that to say I've done that. That's in the records. I don't want to be in a record book saying Dave Allen, he was a tough fighter. Yeah. Be a former British champion. Because there's strong possibility that could come about. Dave will wear you down and stick to you like glue, and he'll stay at one level, at one pace all the way through. And he's not got an up pace or a down pace. So if Mahmoudov's heart is weak, Dave will do him through. But if his heart's strong and he still thinks he's got a little bit, I think Dave comes off second place.
Do you?
Yeah.
Interesting, Adam, that originally Dave Allen, post the Johnny Fisher fight, was talking about British titles and wanting to win British titles and wanting to do it because it's something that he'd get some praise from his old man for, because he said he didn't get much praise from his old man. I think a little bit tongue-in-cheek, notwithstanding it, some of it probably serious as well. Do you agree with Johnny, or do you think that this was the right pathway for him?
I do agree with Johnny. I think people diminish the British title, and I think that's baffling. It's a phenomenal achievement to be able to get your hands on a Lonsdale belt. And I thought that the door was there for him to maybe walk into. I know that we've got obviously the Fraser Clark and Jamie TKV fight. I think that still is a target for Dave. This fight at the weekend, for me, kind of opens maybe a door to a fight that would generate some serious cash. We were talking at the weekend, weren't we, that if he beats Makhmudov, and I can't even believe that we're here talking about this, 3 years removed. 3 years ago, if we'd have been talking about this, I'd have been thinking, you're absolutely bonkers. But if he pulls this off at the weekend, you're probably talking something like a Deontay Wilder or something like that next, which is mad. Whereas I would personally love him to try and go for the Lonsdale belt.
But this is prize fighting, and he will get that opportunity for the Lonsdale belt, I'm sure, with Jamie TKV, fighting for that belt against
Fraser Clark.
Fraser Clark. Yeah, against Fraser Clark. He will get that opportunity. Even if he puts in a big performance against Makhmudov and loses, you would think that he's still in the frame because, he's reinvented himself in so many ways.
Let's not forget, he's already been stopped off Fraser Clark, and that's my thing. When I saw that happen, that's the end for me, and I didn't want to see Dave Allen in the ring. No, I'm maybe a bit pessimistic. I don't want to see the fella get hurt. He's a lovely fella. He's got the right team around him in Jamie and Nigel. They will look after him. They will make sure he doesn't get into any bother. He doesn't get himself into any sticky situations. But I still worry for him, as in he's been through the mill. He's had a lot of
Fraser Clark that he lost to back in 2023, got knocked out in 6th round, who was an unmotivated, unconditioned Dave Allen. This is different.
He has to be better than that, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that he will be better than that. Have you seen the shape that he's in? And I think he's got the right team around him as well. And Jamie Moore is a great student of the sport, and he will have great tactics. If you look at Makhmudov and his defeats against Catterall, who moves early on and keeps out of range, lets him blow a gasket, then jumps on him. Makhmudov's one of those guys that loses heart very, very quickly if you get on top of him. He's a one-track bully, really. Yeah. And I think that Dave Allen has the know-how and the savvy to navigate that early on and win the fight. I was just
worried that the Johnny Fisher wins are making him is making him look.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you next. Is it not fair to assume that this risk, ultimately, the centre of this fight will be financial return? Yeah. So is it not a case of, if he goes in against Makhmudov, if he were to, the worst case scenario, he were to not win this fight, but put in a performance that most people think is still an advancement on perhaps the pre-Johnny Fisher Dave Allen, it would still leave him with a situation where perhaps he could fight David Adeleye, he could fight Jamie TKV or Fraser Clark, the winner of that fight. So it's kind of a no-win situation, a no-lose situation for Dave, unless he gets knocked out quick by this fight.
He could get more than £1 million for fighting Deontay Wilder if he puts a good performance in. I hope he does. I really hope he gets life-changing money and he retires and he retires healthy with his faculties intact. And I hope he wins the British title. I was campaigning for him years ago to try and go the British title route. He lost to David Price.
Do you think he's fighting for the right reasons, Paul? Do you think David's fighting for the right reasons?
Sometimes at the end, who does? At the end of it, for me, it was a job for the last 2 years. Yeah. It was always my passion and my livelihood and my life and everything that I wanted. But for the last 2 years of my pro career, it was a job, and I was going to the gym as a job, as working. You give anything to go back to that gym.
Absolutely.
But at the end of your career, when you had a long, hard career, it probably starts playing on your mind a little bit. I think
for Dave Allen,
changed,
having children changed him, and sort of made him fall in love with the sport again, because he's doing it for a purpose, for a reason, where he never really trained and committed himself.
But my point, lads, is it a dangerous thing to pick fights solely based upon the money you can get from that fight? Is that a dangerous thing to do?
Of course it is. It is, but any fight can be dangerous, can't it?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, any fight can change your life. Any fight, in a positive way and unfortunately in a negative way.
How does he go about winning it, Spence?
He's got to be careful early, and he's got that. He's got a good defence. He rolls the shoulders very well, and he's a good body puncher as well. Yeah. Makhmudov was taken apart by a Catterall to the body, and I think that's how he does it. He sets traps as well, which is quite unusual for a heavyweight. We see him going downstairs there, throwing the right hand over the top. That's the key shot, by the way. Yeah. Makhmudov is a guy that moves in straight lines, comes out in straight lines, doesn't move his head at all, carries his left hand quite low. And Dave Allen just has to find the holes or create the holes, and I think that he has the ability, the technical ability to do that, and also defensively he's very sound. I think body shots is going to, absolutely. I think that body shots are a big part of victory here. I think a big part of the game plan. I just think that he has a style and a technical ability to be able to pull it off.
Well, mate. He's got the
toughness
character
as well, as you say, big pair of balls.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think the aura around Makhmudov has definitely dwindled.
I was going to say that must have happened.
Yeah. And Dave Allen, he won't be frightened going into this at the weekend. No. He'll be game for it. He'll know that there's a bit of a storm in the first 3-4 rounds, and if he can weather that, he's got a real chance.
Do you think he can win it?
Yeah, because I think precisely for the same reasons that Adam talked about, I think he's been chopped down, Makhmudov. I think that's gone now, that fear factor that people have of him. And I think Catterall took his heart a little bit. And it shows that potentially what Johnny was talking about was if Makhmudov, if it gets a bit amongst the muck and bullets, we'll see how big his heart is in this particular fight, because Dave Allen, in this vein of thinking right now, I think has the heart to potentially take it away from Makhmudov. Yeah. But what I do think is it's a good fight. It's an interesting fight, and it's a fight that Dave gets to top the bill on, make some money out of. I hope he wins so that he can then pivot on to the next sort of situation. But we mentioned earlier on Jamie TKV and Fraser Clark. and that fight. They were in the studio the other day talking. Let's have a listen to what they had to say.
Win this fight, champion, then maybe you should pack up and stop boxing. I was thinking, you're 34. There's so many big fights now in the heavyweight division. It's at its best it's ever been. And I was quite shocked that Jim said that.
I've got some Listerine in my bag out there. I'm going to leave it here for Jim White. So when he comes in the morning, it's for him to rinse out his mouth. Yeah, he said that. He said that comment, and people have made quite a lot of it, to be honest. But there's plenty of life left in me yet. Awesome. Do you know what I mean? I feel fit, fresh. I'm looking forward to boxing. It's what I've done since I was a kid, you know. I love it. And, you know, his comments were... They were said, like, you know, wholeheartedly. I didn't feel that any way towards them. But no, absolutely not, Jim. And at this rate, he'll be my next opponent.
We had boxed the same opponent, and they asked him what he thinks of me, and he dismissed me. And for me, it was a very dismissed.
What did he say?
He said that it will be his tune-up fight, like his comeback fight. So I said, well, if I'm a comeback fight, come and see if I'm really a comeback fight. And I've been gunning at him ever since, of course. And we got it turned personal. It got personal, and he didn't like that. We started going back and forth over the years.
You've said you're going to knock him out, right?
Yeah, just smash him to pieces. That's the plan, obviously.
I'll be honest, it's a good plan.
No, obviously we
that's not going to happen, though. You know that.
Bad intentions.
We'll get to what Jim White asked Fraser in a little bit. Can anyone make a case for Jamie TKV in this fight?
Yeah, I can. I can make a case for it. Look, I think that Fraser Clark starts the favourite for sure, and I think he has
we need to make a case for it being a good fight first off, don't we?
Absolutely.
There's an argument that it might not be a bit of a stinker.
That's the point. That Jamie TKV has the ability to do that. You know, he can be very, and we saw that he was turning the Adeleye fight around, but it was making it a very ugly fight. But what he does is very effective. I think he's very awkward, unpredictable, and that for that reason, it could become a frustrating night for Fraser Clark. I expect Fraser...
And also Fraser can be sucked into that.
Absolutely.
He can be dragged into a type
stinker.
of stinker fight.
So you could, you know, it's an interesting fight, this one. It's by no means a foregone conclusion for sure. I mean, Fraser, as I say, will start.
Fire Spencer for BBC. I hope it's a good fight. So the fans that are tuning in will tune in for the next one, because boxing back on terrestrial telly, we need it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what promoter it's with, we need boxing back on terrestrial TV.
The saving grace is that you don't see many bad British title fights, do you? So fingers crossed.
I mean, I touched upon the point of what Jim White was asking him, and I don't think Jim was trying to be overly mean-spirited about asking Fraser, you know, what he wanted to do and where he wanted to go, and could he see himself coming through this fight, and so on and so forth. But where do we see Fraser, if Fraser achieves what he believes he's going to achieve, whether it's smashing Jamie TKV or winning the fight, where do we see the direction of travel for Fraser, and where does he go next after this fight?
Well, I think it's just about gaining that experience at that next level then. You know, you look at your Gerard Anderson, you know, Martin Bacoli, you've got Ajagba, Frank Sanchez. That's the sort of next level before stepping up. You know, you got the European title route. Yeah. I mean, he's at that age now, you know, at 34 years of age, that you sort of, it's not about holding him back anymore, but it's about developing him and taking the right fights at the right time. And I think that sort of level of opponent, for me, that's where he needs to go to gain that experience before trying to jump up again. But it's an interesting one because we don't know where his ceiling's at. We don't know exactly how good he is. Yeah, all right, the Fabio Wardley loss was a shocker, but he's come back against Ebenezer Teti and took him out in fashion. And you go, you know, he's gained that confidence back now. Let's see where it takes him.
The Wardley fight for me wasn't one of them where that's what should have happened in the first fight. I think that was a bit of a surprise and a great win for Wardley.
That was heavyweight boxing.
Can I ask you a question? Because I've always wondered this with Fraser and a lot of other people in the pros. Do you think he stayed amateur too long? Do you think it was one cycle too many?
Well, the answer would be yes. 100%. I think that, you know, you fall into that trap of staying amateur and you know, sticking around those cycles to try and get your opportunity.
Was it his fault, though? That's it.
No,
you just said it about his opportunity.
It's good intentions, you're right, it's a good question.
No, yeah, because he was, you know, you had Anthony Joshua, who was the number one, and, you know, you're waiting for him to go before you get the opportunity. So you got 4-year cycles for the Olympics. And I understand, you know, he wanted to achieve that and tick that off. But then you go, because of that, and, you know, the system of boxing in the amateurs, you go, now, what we hadn't seen from Fraser Clark until the first Fabio Wardley fight was that he could go through those levels, go through those gears, change the pace, because we watched him against people like Marius Wack, and you look at the performance and go, come on, mate, give us a little something else now, because it's about impressing, and this is your opportunity against a human punch bag in Marius Wack, who he was then. But he sort of like trickled over the line with that one. And you look at it and you go, but
they've stayed. I think because his style has remained very similar to that.
There's a few fighters that have done it, and you can't blame him either. He's got to wait for Anthony Joshua to do it, then he's got to wait for Joe Joyce, then it's his turn.
But that's the point. I think what he done was he answered all the questions that we didn't know or didn't think that he could do against the Fabio Wardley fight, because in that fight he showed character, he showed that he could go through the levels and whatnot. And in the return he got caught with a shot, and that's heavyweight boxing and it happens. But he come back against Ebenezer Teti and you go, that was a solid performance. Teti's a tricky customer as well.
Spence, you mentioned about taking time to develop and moving up. We are at a stage where how much time does he have? He doesn't have this much time.
Well, Simon, that's why I'm saying, like, you know, you're talking about a Jagbutt, you're talking about Anderson, you're talking about Sanchez. They're like fringe contenders. Yeah. But so it's a big move up. Yeah. Like you say, you know, because of the time and whatnot, it is about just taking those fights. Say, let's see if you're good enough there. And if you're good enough there, then we're talking about going into world level. But so it's not about taking time, but it's just about, you know, gradual steps up. But he hasn't got the time to maybe 3 or 4 fights before you go there.
I hear you. I mean, the most important thing is what we want to see is we want to see on that night, because we've got 2 fights going on that night, we want to see a great fight on terrestrial TV, because it obviously launches a new terrestrial TV campaign, and we want to see a great fight from Fabio Wardley. So we'll look forward to it. Last week I wanted to talk about the light heavyweight, but we didn't get a chance to do so. So we'll get our teeth into it now. Ben Whittaker comes to the fore. We now know Ben Whittaker signed a new deal with Boxer. Is there a thought process that's the right thing for him to do?
Well, look, he gets his opportunity on BBC, which is going to be good for him, you know, for exposure. Ben Whittaker's very charismatic, so, you know, he can sell himself very well, as he has done. And I think the win against Liam Cameron last time out has put him right back on track. But, we're in a time where you've got, like, Anthony Yard, Joshua Boatsy, Zach Parker, you know, Callum Smith, Craig Richards. There's loads of big names there, so it's an interesting time. And also, look, you go, if he was with someone like Eddie Hearn, I think that Eddie Hearn, he's a brilliant promoter, and he could turn him into a superstar if he's taking the right fights at the right time. You know, Frank Warren has all the fighters. You know, they could do a, you know, what was the competition that he
Super Six.
Yeah, Super Six, or a prize fighter type light heavyweight division. I mean, there's loads of opportunity there, but it's an interesting time for Ben Whittaker, because I think the jury's still very much out. I think he answered a lot of questions last time out because it was a solid performance against Cameron. And I think he may have underestimated him in the first one. It might be the kick up the arse that he needed.
It was, I agree, and it was. But before that fight, with no disrespect whatsoever to Liam Cameron, I think he's a great lad. I think his story's brilliant. He was expected to blow him out quick. He was expected to beat him easy, and he had a nightmare. And he struggled, and it was close, and there was questions about how he went out. I shook Ben Whittaker's hand after he beat him in the second fight when I saw him in Istanbul. We were in Istanbul. And I shook his hand and said, I thought you did great in your last fight. And I was happy seeing the human side of him, because he puts this act and this persona on. And it is an act and a persona. And I think deep down in there, there's a nice lad in there.
He's a lovely guy.
And I said to him, just shake your hand, respect for the way you dealt with the last fight, because he showed that emotion after he won. But he did what he should have did in the first fight, in the second fight. Now, as you say, he's back on track. What that track is,
do you believe that, look, I know we're talking about British, Commonwealth, European, you know, the normal route that fighters take, but do you believe that he has the ability to go on and win world honours? Because if he does, there is superstar status there. Before
the Cameron fight, I thought he was testing for big things. Then the Cameron fight made me question a couple of things with him, what I'm still yet to see.
But I think that was a solid performance. The return.
The second one was a very, very good performance.
It retracted him for sure. Like, where you go, actually, yeah, this kid could be the real deal.
I agree.
Yeah.
Where do we have views on signing with Boxer? I mean, obviously, I want to see Ben doing well.
Yeah.
Do we think this is the right move for Ben Whittaker? Because I think there was some debate on your programme the other night about whether that was the right move for him.
Yeah, I think my conclusions are, from a profile point of view, it's absolutely fantastic to be connected to the BBC. All the spin-offs of that are going to be fantastic for him. The shoulder programming, the profile building into the mainstream, brilliant. And he's got all that character traits that I think he's going to cross over well with the audience. I don't think it's that big of a deal who he signs with, because, as we were talking about before, the man that makes the fights is Turki Al-Sheikh. And Ben Shalom seems to have a decent relationship with him. Eddie Hearn seems to have a decent relationship with him, as does Frank. So when they're putting these big events on, I think Ben Whittaker will be in that conversation for those Ring magazine cards that
Have you changed the view, Adam? Have you changed the view? I mean, obviously we had this big debate prior to the Cameron fights. There was always this debate about whether the punch power carried, whether he had the punch power at light heavyweight to do the job that needed to be done, because people were beginning to think that it takes too long to get people out of there. The Cameron fights raised a whole set of questions after that, beyond the punch power, towards actually does he swallow it? He's now gone back and vanquished Liam Cameron, who I think in the second fight was, with due respect to Liam, was quite happy to be there for the financial return that he got. Where are you on the Whittaker phenomenon?
I'm still on the train.
Yeah,
I'm still on the train. I think he's a breath of fresh air. I think he brings something that nobody else brings. I think he's, with all due respect, like with Callum and various other, he's a step down to that at this moment. There's still a little bit of work. Yeah. I'd maybe like to see a bit of a traditional route, like the British titles, the European titles, Commonwealth titles, those types of things, to really gain that experience in the pro ranks. These boys can tell you left, right and centre. Amateur to pro is very, very different. He's an Olympic silver medalist, absolutely fantastic. But transitioning over into the pro ranks, it's a different game. I think a little bit more time, and we might get there.
The names Spencer was mentioned then are all ranked above him, including Lyndon Arthur. Yeah. There's some good fights that can be made there before that British or for the British title.
Yeah,
I think
that level.
Dan Aziz would be a good fight.
Absolutely, Dan's in there as well. I think that for Ben, I think that as part of his development, he has to take that route where he go the traditional route, where you go British, Commonwealth, European. Because
the BBC will want that.
Perfect.
The BBC will want
absolutely.
that.
Build him towards a British title.
And going back to promoters and who promotes him and who would do the best job with him, you go, well, you know, you're looking at the experience of Eddie or the experience of Frank Warren, who's unbelievable at navigating fighters at the right time. Look at the job, you know, he's done with fighters in the past where he's taken them. You go, had Frank not taken that route, then they wouldn't have even become British champions. But it's all about timing, taking the right fights. So it's the experience of the manager at this stage. Yeah, Turki will be the guy that goes, right, I want Ben Whittaker in with Bivol. And you go, whoa, not yet.
But there's nothing that Ben Shalom has done. I mean, the Liam Cameron fight was the right fight for someone like him to take. Absolutely. He just didn't perform it, did he?
Yeah.
Obviously, the big light heavyweight clash is coming up on November the 22nd on Riyadh season, which is David Benavidez versus Anthony Yarde. There's a part of me, I have deep-seated admiration for Anthony Yarde because he steps in and takes the fights that others don't. I don't agree with what Tundi said about your brother the other day. We discussed that last week about the fact that your brother turned down the Benavidez fight, so ultimately, you know, someone else jumped in. Different reasons and different dynamics. That's Tundi being a bit Machiavellian. But there's a part of me that thinks that despite Anthony's bravery, and despite potentially this being the best chance to win the light heavyweight based upon the two occasions he's had previously, although he could have dealt with Kovalov, that was just inexperience that probably took him out of that opportunity the first time round, that he may yet come again as being a gallant loser.
Mate, this people underestimate Benavidez. He is so for such a big lad, his feet are brilliant, his hands are sensational. He's the business. He's
not knocking people out at light heavyweight, though, is he?
No, he's not, but with all due respect, listen, I like Anthony. I really do, and I wish him all the best. I want it for him because, like you've said, he puts himself in the fire on several occasions. I just think these light heavyweights, they are the real deal. The top boy is obviously Peterbia Bivol at a different level. I think Benavidez is a step down. And then you've got the likes. I mean, Callum's been a Ring Magazine champion at super middle. You know what I mean? We're talking levels here.
Got the rankings here. It's some top 10.
No, it's unbelievable. It's the most exciting division for me.
It's a tough division, and also like you look at Anthony Yarde and the fights that he's taken against Kovalev, you know, abroad in Russia, and you know, last time out we saw him against Beterbiev. We were there then. He put up a great performance before eventually getting stopped. But you look at that and you go, now David Benavidez, the new hot shot really of boxing, and you go, that's a tough route, man, to a world title. You know, people get easier options, but you have to respect that. But he's always got a puncher's chance, for sure.
Is this his best chance, do you think?
I think Kovalev was his best chance at that. I know he was away from home, and it was a and I don't know where he was at that time, Crusher. I just think Benavidez is fresh.
Yeah. I would say it's his best chance only on the fact that Benavidez has come up from super middle. But you look at the phenomenal champions that he's boxed before that, Kovalev and the last time Beterbiev.
The thing is, you look at Yarde's losses, he's lost to both of them because of a lack of an engine.
Yeah.
And someone's come on strong and stopped him late. Yeah. Now, I really like Anthony Yarde. It's difficult for me to say it all the time because it's his plant pot of a trainer that I just can't take to and can't listen to. And the stuff that comes out of his mouth gets Anthony Yarde. Listen, I've had it myself. I've had trainers who've got us a bad name. That's how it goes in the game. But he's been found wanting late because the engine wasn't there. Because he's punched himself out early on, let's say, or whatever, against quality fighters, by the way, who were just, so they're in there knowing I've just got to ride the storm.
I mean, I don't think there's any doubt.
I don't know about the work they do in the gym. I'm not sure what work they're doing in the gym. I'm not sure whether he's doing enough hard sparring, hard running, hard conditioning, hard red zone stuff. I don't know, because I'm not there, so I can't really say.
I've been in the gym with him. He's a phenomenal trainer. He trains very, very hard. I think it's all down to that where he's blown a gasket with an experience against Kovalev that you were talking about, and Beterbiev. You go, Beterbiev, it was about 11 levels, and you know yourself, Paul, being an ex-fighter, you go, when you have to box, like, so when they started off, he's in 5th gear and Beterbiev's in 2nd gear. So when Beterbiev's going through the gears, he can't go anymore.
Exactly.
And so as a fighter, that is draining, and you know, that saps your energy. And I think...
But shouldn't your experienced coach in the corner tell you that?
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is that had he boxed at lower level than that early on, he might have got eaten up earlier on. What I'm saying is it's like... He's very explosive. When he punches, he loads up with everything. Whereas, like, we may feel our way in, you're picking the shots and going into the fight. His style is different, and that's why the struggle is with the engine.
I agree, to an extent, but if you do that in the gym, if you train that way in the gym and all you do is throwing power punches, look at Nick Ball. He throws power punch after power punch because he trains that way.
Yeah.
If you go there in the gym, you can go there fight night. I don't think he's going in the gym, but if he is going in the gym... Look at it from Benavidez' perspective. All I have to do is outlast him. All I have to do is stay in this fight, and after 6-7 rounds, he's mine.
But I'm saying in the gym, we see all the tip-tat stuff that he does as well, but he does a lot of explosive stuff. You know, he does a lot of explosive stuff on the road.
To be able to fight.
So is this the best version of Anthony Yarde? Because going into various fights, we saw him against Lyndon Arthur, but prior to the Lyndon Arthur fight, he was underwhelming. You know, we were expecting a lot from Anthony coming back. There was an argument with Frank Moore on delays about fights and so on and so forth. Is he going into this fight in the best version of himself that gives him the opportunity to feel optimistic on his behalf?
I think that motivation, when you're at this level, when you've boxed Kovalev and you've boxed Beterbiev and whatnot, when you're boxing their lesser names, I think that motivation plays a big part in him underperforming at a certain level. And I think that someone like Benavidez, that's the kick up your arse you need to go, now I'm motivated. Now this is like an opportunity, and possibly the last opportunity to win a world title.
He'll need to be, because on his last performance at Tottenham's ground, that's not going to be enough
against Lyndon Arthur.
He has to raise his game, and I think he might have that in his locker. I hope he has got that in his locker.
Yeah, me too.
I would have not.
Do you think it's a winnable fight for him?
I mean, look,
of course he starts underdog. Of course
it's a massive underdog.
He can crack.
It's a tough ask. Of course,
that's the thing. He can
fight,
crack.
And if you can punch the way he can, you've always got a chance against someone who started off a super middleweight. Also, don't forget. I hope he goes there and wins. I would love nothing more to see my brother fighting against Anthony Yarde for a couple of titles in this country. I would love nothing more. I think it'd be a great fight, but it's a big ask. And listen, I hope he does it. He's got a chance, and as long as you punch the way he punches, you've certainly got a chance.
He's definitely got a chance.
We got Josh Brackley back in the ring in November as well. A fight that I think Frank Warren wanted some time to put Zach Parker in a fight with someone like Josh Brackley. Obviously, your brother, in my view, did a number on Josh Brackley. Brackley coming back from that defeat and winning in style puts him back at the top table again, doesn't it, Paul? Yeah, especially after the performance he put in. It was a great fight. Yeah, I've always liked Brackley. I've always got on and I've always respected him. He knows that, and we know that. Like, I've commentated on him in his ABA final. I've followed him through his career. I've always kept in touch with him. He's very, very respectful lad. Like, I sat at the wrong table in the dinner hall in one day on fight week, and I didn't realise it was reserved for the whole team Boatti. And I thought, I'm sorry, I picked my table up and moved. I said, I'm not like that. Like, they know I'm not. Vice versa. Like, couldn't have been any more respectful pre-fight, during the fight, and after the fight. But I think he's very talented. I think I think a year later, the fight might, with Callum, if he'd have had a lot more season or a little bit more season, it might have been a lot closer than what it was. But I thought Callum's just the old season pro, who was stronger, fitter, wanted to do a bit more and had a bit more about him, and that's because Callum's a phenomenal fighter as well. I think he'll come again. I think there's like, I would have liked to see now the Yarde against Boatti fight. I think that was the fight to make.
Do you know what I like this fight with Boatti and Zach Parker? Because Parker's a decent fighter, a decent operator, but you're right about Boatti. I think that what he showed there against your brother was a lot of character. I mean, when things were getting really tough, he showed that he could bite down and turn it around and ask your brother to ask questions as well. Yeah. I like that about him a lot. So not just that he's a super talented guy with very heavy hands, but he showed he's got character. Zach Parker is going to have to show something that we've never seen from him before. You know, when you see the fights, he already broke his hand against John Ryder, you go, but he hasn't been in the trenches like Joshua Boatti has, and he's not come through that either. So
I agree.
He has to start a big favourite going in, I think, that Joshua Boatti, for that reason.
What do you think Boatti took from that fight, Paul? I mean, you've described what you've seen from him. What do you think he took from it?
I think he can take a lot of positives. Listen, as long as he's aware that he's been in with an unbelievable fight.
He's still at the level.
And I'm not just saying it because it's my brother, but Callum's a world-class fighter. A big puncher. He took a lot of what Callum had. He was caught a couple of times. Yeah. He was hurt a couple of times, but he rode it well. He his way through it as well. And I thought he showed signs of a really very good, solid pro in that fight. Boatsy obviously gained a hell of a lot more respect from Callum and us lot during that fight. The thing with the Parker fight is, I didn't like what I saw in his last fight. Yeah. I thought it looked like someone who was done. Yeah. And for someone like Boatsy coming off that last fight and Parker coming off that last fight, this for me looks...
The difference in this one, I think, is...
one-sided one for me.
Right. The difference for me, I think, is that Boatsy has proven that he's disciplined, and discipline is a big thing going into fights. You know,
he stayed disciplined in that fight as well. He stuck to the plan. Because I was expecting him to try and take it up another little gear, but it just wasn't there because the pace it was at and against the quad.
Do you see, Adam? I mean, obviously there was this express train expecting Josh Boatsy to have come through. I thought it was a very difficult fight for him to have taken Callum Smith on and potentially ill-advised, and so it proved to be the case. And there might have been ulterior motives, like the finances around the fight, that took Josh's head in that direction. But do you still see potentially Josh Boatsy being a world champion in this division?
Yeah, I do. I've been vocal. I've been very frustrated with the Joshua Boatsy trajectory, train, whatever you want to call it, to this particular point. And I know that there's been trouble with promotional issues or falling out with people along the way or whatever it may be, or maybe lack of activity. But when he came out of the Olympic Games with that bronze medal, I was like, this is the kid, man. I'm all in. Yeah. And it stumbled a little bit. I think he takes a lot out of the fight with Callum. He's proven that he's got a set of stones, which is absolutely massive. And even though it's a loss, he is now seen the elite level. He knows what it is. He got out thought in that fight, really, from Callum. And if he can take those things and apply them to his own game, I just hope that maybe the motivation doesn't come down a touch when he's fighting Zach Parker, because when you've got to fight Callum, you've got to be on edge constantly.
Yeah. And he was paid well as well in the fight before, obviously.
So he's got to keep that level of motivation for a Zach Parker fight, put a performance in that is of that same level that he did against Callum, and then this could really kick off, because Frank's got some great light heavyweights. He's connected left, right and centre. This division's going to be all over the place once Beterbiev Bivol clear off and these belts get fragmented, and he's going to be right at the forefront of it because of the name that he carries. So I think the future, the next 12 to 24 months for him is really, really rosy.
Very good. We'll look forward to it. Right, Judith Chalmers, you were in Nigeria. Tell us.
That's an old school joke. You have to explain that. That's an old school joke.
Our audience won't know what you're going on.
The travel show.
Yeah.
Your trip to Nigeria, tell us about it.
Yeah, no, it was brilliant. I mean, Amir Khan Promotions, Easy Adamu, Balmoral Promotions, they put on a fantastic event out there. They're trying to open up boxing, in that part of the world. Africa, we went to Ghana in June. That was a success. And this was brilliant. Brandon Glanton against Marcus Brown. Yep. Both guys had, beef against each other. I think Marcus Brown was possibly the favourite. He was the 2012 Olympian. He was the favourite going in. But Brandon Glanton ripped up the script. He was a man that would not be denied. Went in there, put on a fantastic fight. It was very, very impressive, mate. Abdul Khan was meant to be boxing on the undercard. Unfortunately, he fell ill, so that was out. But as a whole, it was fantastic. Yeah, brilliant. I think they're talking about doing another show out there, actually, December the 19th, with a big-name heavyweight.
Well, when you were out there, you caught up with some of the big names over there, which was one of them being Lawrence Okolie. Let's have a listen to you talking to Lawrence.
I think we can have an all-Nigerian showdown, potentially, with AJ. That might be an interesting fight as well.
Yeah. I think so too. I think that, for the sake of, listen, AJ is the biggest star we've seen come out of England boxing in the last, I don't know, maybe ever. So for me and him to get on in Africa would be absolutely monumental, because we must be two of the last boxing world champions out of Nigeria, myself and him.
Is there a fight that you'd like to fight next? I mean, we sensed AJ excited you maybe a bit more than Moses Itauma did.
for several reasons. Yeah. But
it'll be in front of 80,000 people at Wembley, probably, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be a big fight.
Now you're talking. But it's in terms of routes, for me, I don't really have one that I'm like, this is the exact one I want. I'm at the level now. I've been a world champion twice now. I'm top ranked to the WBC, so there's not a fight that they're going to offer me or that's going to present itself that I'll turn down. So I just look forward to the end of this year and a huge 2026.
Sorry, Spence, it wasn't you, it was Paul Hawksby. You could have been separated at birth, you two. Do you really think there's an opportunity or a reality of Lawrence Okolie versus Anthony Joshua?
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity. Of course there is. You know, if financially it makes sense. I know that Anthony Joshua would love to box in Africa. Nigeria has been talked about. Ghana has been talked about. And Lawrence Okolie is exactly the same. You know, I think it's on their bucket list. They're at that stage of their careers now where, you know, if financially it makes sense, the fight will happen there for sure.
If there were to be a fight between Lawrence Okolie and Anthony Joshua, who would go into that one as the favourite, Adam?
You're horrible, you, mate.
I'm glad.
You just
glad you threw that question at you, mate.
I know what I mean. Comments on this is going to be... Who would be the favourite? I think... You probably have to have... I think it's 50-50. That's sat on the fence, that, innit? You're not going to like that answer. I'm going to say 50-50 just because I don't know where AJ is at. I don't know where he's at. I don't know. You're probably better qualified than me.
Are you trying to pass it to me now, are you?
No, I just don't know where Anthony Joshua's at.
The bookies would side with Joshua.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
He'd be the betting favourite.
But is he though, really?
He would be the betting favourite, but whether he is or not is a different thing, as I say, because of what we've seen in previous fights.
Is it a fight you'd like to see, Paul?
To be honest with you, no disrespect to Okolie whatsoever, I've never really wanted to see him in any fights after a few of the performances that he's had, and I'm not being horrible saying
it's not
that.
An attractive
it's
style,
just not my cup of tea. I would much prefer watching a couple of fighters taking a few chances, taking a few shots in a phone box type of fight than someone like Okolie.
Well, speaking to Okolie out there, you know, like obviously he's just looking now. He wants to fast track because he's at that stage of his career. He's near.
Where can he go, Spence? If he can't fight. I thought that Lawrence, in his most recent fight, and the name escapes me, but it was a difficult opponent. Who did he fight in the last fight on the undercard of the Daniel Dubois fight?
The name escapes me. Yeah.
Memorable.
Kevin Lerena.
Kevin Lerena.
And I thought Lawrence did well in that fight.
Absolutely.
Because Lorena's a difficult opponent.
And he done a great job, and he ripped his bicep actually in the second round. And I thought,
where does he go if he can't get someone like Anthony Joshua? Where does he's been installed? What's he been installed as? A number one in the WBC?
Number one. But great question because
he won the bridge one, didn't he? I think
I asked him out there, where do you go? What do you do? And he said, listen, I will fight Agit Kabiel, whether the title's on the line or not. Like this is what I like about Lawrence. He said, give me Moses Itauma if that fight makes sense. Like, he's talking about prospects as well. Yeah, he wants to achieve his dream of becoming world heavyweight champion. Give me Anthony Joshua. He just wants an opportunity to fight any one of them.
I agree.
There's no direct route for him.
I agree, but he's in that position because he's in the Who Needs Them club. No one really wants to fight that style of fight because of the performances he's had in the past. So he's got to take whatever chance he can get now. And I would like to see them fights now because he is backed up against the wall, and he has to fight now, and he has to be positive and aggressive.
Is that a good fight for Moses Itauma? You know, we're talking about Moses getting the rounds and getting that experience on the world stage. Like,
it could be.
Moses Itauma, does he go down that route?
If you're looking after Itauma, would you put him in with Lawrence Okolie?
Well, look,
at this stage, not because you fear of losing, because would it be a good fight?
Well, this is the thing. You're talking about Itauma versus Michael Hunter. You're talking about Itauma versus David Adeleye. You're talking, Lawrence Okolie will fall into that bracket, certainly in a fight
Spence,
or two.
You spoke to him the other day. Let's listen to what Moses was going to say about his next opponent.
I opened up Instagram. I just saw so many posts of me that I turned down the fight with Efe Ajagba. And I was like, I had a meeting with Queensbury not so long ago, and they gave me 3 names, and none of them was Efe Ajagba. So I was just like, it's not really something that I'm too heavily involved in. Like, I just get the opponents. We're working on it. We got 3 names. I'm not going to disclose them just yet. And it's a choice of the 3 names, and yeah, that's probably as much influence that I have on the guys I fight that I got to this date. Like, I can't just call out randomly people and just expect to fight them, because I'm a 20-year-old guy, and I'm a 20-year-old guy with a lot of talent, but I haven't got a backing or following like Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury. So I don't think I can pull as much strings as people think.
Strangely, are we at a little bit of a crossroads with Moses in terms of he can't really probably carry a pay-per-view fight with someone like David Adeleye for 25 quid, can he? Well, you know, the Queensberry want him carrying pay-per-view events, but there's big names that are being linked but not being ultimate, or not. Actually, there's not really big names being linked. Full stop. Well, so where are we with the challenges that await Moses and the opportunity to push him forward into the space that we think he's inevitably going to land?
I think he carries that pay-per-view wall with a, you know, co-main event, if you like, with, say, let's talk about Derek Chisora versus Daniel Dubois, and you got Moses Itauma, let's say, against Michael Hunter, or you get Moses Itauma, you know, against someone else like David Adeleye. You go, then that carries that pay-per-view wall, and that will give him the opportunity to maybe start going on to doing it on his own when he boxes the bigger names like Lawrence Okoli, you know, like Anthony Joshua. Like when you get in, that's when you get in the pay-per-view. But I think that December the 13th, you know, if the right name is mentioned for Moses, which is probably going to be David Adeleye or Michael Hunter. If it's one of those two, you go, and then you get Derek Chisora versus possibly Daniel Dubois or another well-known name. You've got a pay-per-view model there for sure. You know, it warrants that.
Do you see that as a £25 price point? Do you?
I do.
Moses Itauma versus Michael Hunter, for example?
Yeah, but
as a headline for a pay-per-view? No.
No, but I'm talking about, like I said, a co-main headline. I'm talking about you have to have a, like, if you've got Derek Chisora versus, let's say, Daniel Dubois, we're just using this as an example because it's a fight that's sort of been rumoured. If you get Derek Chisora versus Dubois, Moses versus Michael Hunter or David Adeleye, it's going to have to go pay-per-view.
Well, only because people's expectations of what they should be getting paid is up here.
And this is the point.
And this is the fight. This is
That's
the problem.
how you reach the numbers up.
Well, yeah, I know it is, but it doesn't mean it's right for the audience. This is where the trouble is at the moment that obviously Queensberry find themselves in. Moses Itauma is the hottest thing in the heavyweight division right now. People ain't getting in there for free. The opponents, are they? So they've got to be able to find some way, shape or form how to pay somebody of a decent standard to keep the audience interested in what Moses Itauma's doing, and that's a difficult thing to do.
And at this stage, he's not the type of name needed to sell
there you go.
Or to sell pay-per-view. There you go. He will be. I've got no doubt about that. He will be. He's a brilliant fighter. He's one of the most exciting things we've seen in a long time. But at the moment, he's not that crossover just yet. So, as you're saying, he has to be on a big card.
You have to have a big fight on it. You know, you have to have a double header, if you like. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Moses alluded to it himself, and rightly so, because he's 20 years of age, that he doesn't have the following or the recognition, and clearly for obvious reasons, of an Anthony Joshua or a Tyson Fury. But in our mind's eye, do we see a time where that following will be there for him?
Yes. I think it's going to come down. I mean, Anthony was in a very fortunate position. The boom of the Olympics. Yeah. Obviously, I mean, look at him. I mean, look, he looks fantastic. Yeah. Boom of the Olympics. He's on Sky Sports, which is pumped into your living room every single day of the week. And the star went, didn't it? It just went crazy. Moses doesn't have those things. So it's going to be interesting to see how that is marketed, how he does cross over into the mainstream. Talent-wise, mate, we've got something very, very, very special in this country in Moses Itauma. Whether they can get him into the mainstream, whether they can get him on the talk shows, whether they can get him in front of that casual audience, that's going to be the challenge, I think, for Queensberry going forward.
Spence, I mean, just to close off this section and the show, you mentioned about him co-promoting the fight with Derek Chisora and Daniel Dubois. Hasn't that fight died on the vine anyway?
Well, who?
Chisora versus Dubois.
Well, no, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it ever materialised. I'm saying it was rumoured. I'm saying, but you need a fight of that magnitude to sell a pay-per-view wall. Like, you know, like Chisora, like two well-known names. Dubois coming back, Derek Chisora looking for his 50th and final fight. You'd go, that's the sort of fight you need to put on the pay-per-view if that fight was to materialise. Or you're going to need Daniel Dubois in against a big name, or Derek Chisora against a big, well-known name to sell it as a pay-per-view. Is what I'm saying.
Like who?
Well. That's what I just put them together, and you're telling me now to go somewhere else. I'm saying.
I'm just looking at the old dynamics of it and working it backwards and thinking to myself, how do we get a fight of this magnitude or a fight of that scale?
I just told Derek Chisora, Daniel Dubois. Unless you've got another name.
But I don't think that happens, does it? That's what I'm saying.
If you don't think it happens, tell me what it does yourself then. You tell me what you think.
Well, I'm just looking at saying, if Itauma fights, say, Michael Hunter, and Chisora fights someone like Jared Anderson, which is likely where it might land.
Yeah.
How's that a £25 pay-per-view?
So are you speaking? No, it's not. Yeah, but I didn't say that. I didn't. You mentioned.
Well, that's my point then.
Yeah, but I'm saying it only lands as a pay. You're not listening to me, are you?
But that's break it down. They're trying to make him into a pay-per-view star.
It only lands as a pay-per-view if Chisora goes in with someone like Daniel Dubois. If you get Chisora in with, say, Anderson, then how do you sell it as a pay-per-view?
I don't think you do.
Yeah.
But the idea is to build him into a pay-per-view star, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That's the metrics of it. So, anyway, we will see. Right, that's it for episode 141 of Talk Boxing. Thanks, Spencer. Thanks, Adam. Paul, as always. And we'll see you next week.